Good morning. It is June 22nd. I'm Shane Seeley, and this is the CBC Morning Report. As the country prepares to ease restrictions on the entertainment industry at month end, there is still concern in some quarters. And the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners has some questions it believes need urgent answers. Following on from a meeting with the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners and entertainment stakeholders last night, the President, Dr. Linda Williams, will be joining me live here on the Morning Report to address some of those outstanding issues. Of course, earlier in the month, BAMP would have issued a release with a number of protocols that it would want to see observed for the reopening of the entertainment sector. At that time, the focus was on crop over, but there is no crop over as usual this year. So there are a number of concerns that were in this release that BAMP outlined. Mass gatherings. Of course, the Prime Minister would have announced recently that the limit for these entertainment events / mass gatherings will be 150 people. Stakeholders had some concerns about that number. They would have wanted to see more. However, BAMP wants to see 150 work across the board as we go forward and see how this happens in the very near future. Of course, the end of the month is just a few days away, and we'll wait and watch for the events as they unfold. So Dr. Williams will be joining me live to discuss this and other issues as we look forward to entertainment and the entertainment industry and events as a whole being rolled out. The Prime Minister also spoke to testing for these entertainment events, and for those who are not vaccinated, this is one of the other burning issues that will be addressed this morning. Dr. Linda Williams is here with me now. Dr. Williams, good morning to you. Hope you're well this morning. Dr. Williams, are you there?
Morning. Yes, morning.
Good morning, Dr. Williams. Good to have you on. All right, so let's talk about it. You had a meeting with some of the entertainment stakeholders last night following the big announcements over the weekend from the Prime Minister. Talk to me about those discussions last night. What was the focus?
Okay, well, we're actually due to have a bigger meeting with the executive of the stakeholders. So that hasn't fully occurred as yet. But one of the things that we want to discuss is really how to have mass gatherings safely. At this time when we are reopening the economy, we recognize that it is really necessary who is involved in economic on the same page, because we don't want to make any slip-ups that will lead to any public health emergencies later on. We must realize that we are still in a time where we can't certify that there is no community transmission going on. We are appreciative of the fact that we have low numbers now, and we're grateful for the low numbers and hope that it continues. But we also want to encourage Barbadians to do more testing. And I think with these types of events, that testing prior to events, as well as people knowing their COVID status and people being vaccinated, are the keys to making sure that we have safe events. The numbers that we have are higher numbers going forward will depend on how safely we follow the protocols and how we protect ourselves against the spread of COVID during the event. So I think the decision to start low and revise upward is a good decision, and that we have to take things very slowly, but that, if we say that we're going to allow mass gatherings, then we must do them in all spaces in a safe manner. So I think that is the gist of BAMP's position, that all mass gatherings, regardless of the cause, whether for entertainment or other purposes, must be done in a safe manner. And I think this is what we're trying to roll out right now, bearing in mind that we still have, as far as we know, opening up tourism, there's always a possibility of more variants entering. So that is the key to prevention of another wave, another outbreak.
You're satisfied with the 150 limit allocated for, well, entertainment venues, but you would like to see it across the board?
Yeah, I'm certain that that decision was not correct. For people involved in entertainment, 150 is a really low number, and we understand that. We know that it would be, you know, you look at the cost of events, and you look at, you know, different things, you know, whether or not it's profitable. But I think that, you know, if you look at how other countries have done it, you start with a number, you look at the indices every 3 weeks and the indices within the country to make sure that everything is being done as best as it can be and that there has been no outbreak of disease. And then you push forward or pull back based on those numbers and based on the progress that the country makes. So I don't think we can start with a high number and throw caution to the wind, because the truth is, at this point, we are not through some of the things that we see happening in other territories.
Okay. Well, there's one other thing that I want you to just look at for me, which is one of the entertainment stakeholders. He would have recently been on the Morning Report actually yesterday, Orlando Newton. He is the CEO of Ticket Pal, and he's a producer of events as well. He was speaking about holding a test event, the possibility, government, the Ministry of Health, and of course entertainment stakeholders hosting this event for about 500 people. His suggestion was, this was the example he gave, at Kensington Oval, and just to let the Ministry of Health officials and stakeholders in the entertainment industry be on that same page going forward to avoid any mass spreader event. And Dr. Williams will rejoin us shortly as she gets those internet challenges sorted out to discuss that. That was the proposal put forward for this test event. 500 people, Kensington Oval, the venue, to just see how health officials and how those entertainment stakeholders operate to get this done going forward. Can it be done safely? And to avoid the spread of COVID-19 and to avoid COVID-19 positive people possibly entering the venue. Those checks and balances, of course, need to be observed. So this is another suggestion that could possibly happen. Dr. Williams, just to get your thoughts on that, hosting a test event, stakeholders in the entertainment industry and the Ministry of Health. Your take on that?
Yeah, I've heard that suggestion. However, I think that a test event is an event. And if we're going to test it, we have to test it within the limits and parameters that have been set forth. So I have no problems with doing a run to see if the protocols work, but we can't, this is a pandemic, and the pandemic doesn't know whether you're having a test event or not. It only knows you're having a mass gathering. So I don't think necessarily that we can say, well, we can test it with a higher number if the number that has been set has been 150 at this time. We can test it with a higher number and then run to see how it goes with a higher number. Because we don't. So I agree with having a test, but within the parameters set. And then if we see that that can be done safely, then we can go forward from there. But if we don't get dry runs, then we're able to say, well, you know, 500 works, and therefore the number is 500. If that is the reason for the test event, to increase the number by saying, well, this worked at this number. There's a reason for starting low and going slow, and all we are asking is that we look at it across the board. We look at mass gatherings across the board, because, like I said, not just for entertainment, for celebrations, for any place where people are gathered safely, in places of worship, etc. It has to be that the same principles and protocols are followed by all. So if we're going to go straight from 0 to 500, um, there's no, there's no, there's no. It's not just a matter of finding whether the protocols work or not. There's a reason for having the low numbers and increasing slowly. And so I think that if we're going to test it, we need to test it within the parameters set by the COVID monitoring.
Agreed. One more thing before you go, the Delta variant, it has been announced by the health minister that that variant is here in Barbados, but that everything was done to ensure that it was not spread among the population. Last week we were talking about the potential of the deadly Delta variant coming to Barbados, and now it's here. What does that mean for the country?
Well, I think vigilance is the most important thing that our country can have, because whatever variant there is, the same principles of social distancing, hand sanitization, mask wearing, etc. Apply. The good thing is now we have some vaccination. 30% of the population vaccinated. That is not enough to protect the unvaccinated, and in what is being referred to as herd immunity. So that is not enough. People being vaccinated to say that we can dispense with those types of regulations. I've seen a lot of people being a lot more relaxed about mask wearing, but whatever variant is here, the way to protect against it is the same principles that we had in the past, plus more people getting vaccinated. The Delta variant is about 60% more transmissible than any of the variants we have seen. That means that more people can become infected from a single person. So now is not the time to let up or to relax on these regulations. Now is not the time to throw caution to the wind. We have to be vigilant. We have to be picking up people as they come in. We have to be regularly testing for variants. We have to be regularly reporting the results. And we need to have all of that set up, plus an increase in testing in order to protect ourselves further. Because it will only take one person, one super spreader at a mass event to cause chaos. So we hope and pray that that will not happen, but it really is in our hands as a nation and as health officials to maintain the vigilance that has got us this far.
Dr. Williams, thank you so much. Of course, we'll check back in with you when you have further conversations with those in the entertainment industry, and we'll look to hear those reports right here on the Morning Report. But you stay safe until then.
Thank you. Take care.
More COVID updates coming your way right here on the Morning Report. That's next. The most recent COVID-19 statistics are showing that 2 positive cases, a male and a female, were recorded from Sunday's tests. They were out of 352 tests conducted by the Best Dos Santos Public Health Laboratory at that time. The number of people in isolation is now 10, and a total of 4,045 COVID-19 cases have been confirmed here in Barbados since the pandemic began back in March last year. 47 people have succumbed to the virus. Now, as part of the national vaccination program, 92,071 first doses of the vaccine have been administered. Additionally, 66,347 people are now fully vaccinated. An international survey has shown that many parents will not consent to their children receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. More in this report.
You're so strong.
It takes a tough 5-year-old to giggle through a blood draw.
This is the COVID vaccine. 1, 2, 3. You ready?
And not even flinch when he gets the shot containing either the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine or a placebo.
Well, you know what that is?
Khalil Chari Halperin is among the 4,500 children participating in Pfizer's late-stage clinical trials for kids under 12, taking place across the U.S. and Europe. At one test site in Louisiana, doctors at Ochsner Health Medical Center are asking parents to prepare kids for the vaccination.
Having your child vaccinated protects them from getting COVID. And while it's unlikely that they would get a serious illness or serious impact, it is possible. And, you know, we're here to tell you that there are children in our children's hospital to this day being cared for because of COVID.
The polls show 1 in 4 American parents say they will definitely not have their young child vaccinated against COVID, no matter the trial's results.
It doesn't make any sense to take a vaccine that I can't be sure of one way or another for something that if I get it, I'm most likely going to survive, and they even more so are more likely to survive.
Leah Ritchie says her 11-year-old son will not get the vaccine. She thinks the development was rushed. The Kaiser Family Foundation reports another quarter of American parents say they will have their young child vaccinated as soon as the FDA authorizes emergency use. Jennifer Gibbons' daughter is 8.
She's a bit high risk, has a couple of medical conditions that make her more so, and I would love for her to be vaccinated today.
Pfizer's vaccine already has emergency authorization from the FDA for children 12 years and up. The company says its trials for that age group showed 100% efficacy against COVID with minimal side effects. Results for younger children are expected by September.
Now let's go over to Pearson to hear what's happening on the Tuesday edition of Morning Barbados. A lot to unpack there as well this morning. Pearson?
Thank you, Shane. When you join me right here on Morning Barbados, we'll meet the producers of the upcoming series TGAT. I know you're asking, what is that? We'll tell you what that is and what that series will bring to you. We'll also be breaking down what happened with the West Indies tool test series, and it's all over now for them, whitewashed by the South Africans. Our commentator will be joining us to delve into that subject, and we'll be continuing our conversations with our pediatrician about children and child health. All that and a whole lot more straight ahead here on Morning Barbados. Back to you, Sheen.
Thank you, Pearson, and you'll hear what the Prime Minister has to say about the country's debt after this break. Prime Minister Mia Motley has announced that Barbados will be taking its bid for concessional debt funding to the World Bank this week. The disclosure came during the Vice Chancellor's Forum and a distinguished Arthur Lewis virtual event, a conversation on sustainable island futures hosted by the University of the West Indies. The Prime Minister says a fairer deal is needed for sustainable island developing states.
Our matter goes before the World Bank Board this week. It took a whole year. And I want to say something quick on this too, because there's a belief that you can do things normally in the middle of a war, when in truth and in fact, what matters in the middle of a war is time.
The Prime Minister also pointed out the need for a change in the Bretton Woods arrangement and agreement to address specific needs of this region.
We need a new rethink of how the Bretton Woods institutions can be reformed to meet the needs of the day. To continue, and I'll give you an example, and the others laugh at me, including my foreign minister, every time I say it. To ask me to tell you whether I'm eligible for borrowing from you on the basis of per capita income that is 2 years old is asking me to take my blood pressure from 2 years ago to tell you whether I'm going to get a stroke today or not. So we know it is wholly inappropriate.
Meanwhile, one of the world's leading economists, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, believes the United Nations holds the greatest hope for small island states to enable them to access loans where the debt interest rates are on par with those of developed nations.
Denmark can borrow from the markets for 10 years, US dollar denominated, at 0.1% interest. Kenya pays 9.8%. So here it's not even the same world. And by the way, the US has more debt, not less as a share of GDP. Why can the rich countries borrow so much, so easily? Not because they're so responsible, but because they own the central banks in which the debts are issued.
Back to other conversations here at home, the recent hike in gas prices cannot be blamed on the government because the add-on costs are attached even before the oil reaches local pumps. That's according to the senior technical advisor to the government, Dr. Kevin Greenidge, speaking on the Face It and Fix It program yesterday. He says the price at the pump has 50% tax and another 33% in freight to get it here. These costs cannot be changed as they rise with the price per barrel. Dr. Greenidge added that government will try to cap it, but that won't bring the price back down to pre-COVID levels. Here's what else he had to say.
Because of the pandemic, government lost about 600 million in tax revenues last year alone from what it was expecting to get. And it has to make up that difference somehow. So we have to be mindful that when government tinkers with tax to give it ease, it has to make up somewhere, or services or some service it provide will suffer, or it has to take on that. That's the only three sources, right? You either impact the services you get, and because of the pandemic, a tremendous amount of services like increasing welfare benefits, assistance to the hoteliers and those who were impacted, unemployment relief, many benefits. So you have to keep that in context. So the way the government is looking to deal with this is cap the VAT at a certain level and be able to then pass on that while managing it fiscally.
Barbadians have made their submissions and the selections have been made for CBC's Soca Superstar and the Kaiso Champion competitions. The first of two sets of 12 names for CBC's Soca Superstar competition were announced last evening following a computer draw. CBC's marketing specialist Nicole Collins has the details.
Today what we did was we used a computer-generated application to allow us to randomly select 12 persons who will go forward and will be featured this Saturday night on CBC TV 8, 9:03 p.m. sharp. Those persons are Little Rick, Rupi, Mole, iWeb, Mikey, RPB, Allison Hines, Peter Ram, Biggie Irie, Hypersongs, Griner, and Edwin Yearwood. And those are the first 12 who will be competing in the Soca Star competition. We encourage Barbadians to stay tuned to the CBC stations of choice, 98.1 The One, Q100.7 FM, 94.7 FM, and of course CBC TV8 and all of our social media platforms to hear how they can vote. You will be voting via texting.
Back on the international scene, the Swedish Prime Minister has lost a no-confidence vote. This now gives the Social Democrat leader a week to resign and hand the Speaker the job of finding a new government or call a snap election.
The Riksdag chamber in Stockholm was packed full for the momentous vote, an electronic ballot which took less than 20 seconds to confirm the outcome. Stefan Löfven is the first Swedish premier ever to lose a confidence vote. Löfven sat impassively on the front row as his coalition disintegrated before his eyes.
Statsministern och övriga statsråd.
Löfven is a former union boss famed for his negotiating skills. And since an inconclusive election in 2018, Löfven's Social Democrats have governed in a minority coalition with the Greens, while still needing the support of smaller parties to get votes through Parliament. But his government proposals to reform Sweden's strict rent control system proved to be a red line for the Left Party, who warned that they would bring down the government unless the proposals were withdrawn.
Vi har gjort något som uppfattas som ovanligt I politiken.
We kept our word, said Nooshi Dadgostar, the Left Party leader. So Löfven now has 1 week to decide whether to call a snap election or resign and give the Speaker of Parliament the task of trying to find a replacement Prime Minister.
Och oavsett vad.
Regardless of what happens now, my party and myself will, together with others, be available to shoulder the responsibility of leading the country. My primary focus has always been, is and will always be to do what is best for Sweden.
That's a heavy hint of what many analysts are suggesting, that with Sweden's fragmented political landscape and opinion polls showing the centre-left and centre-right blocs evenly balanced, it's entirely possible that the Speaker will hand the top job back to Stefan Löfven, at least until the next general election in September next year. The PM may be down, but he's not yet out.
In sports, no one really wants to hear how the West Indies fared. Well, they lost that second test to South Africa by 158 runs last evening as the visitors recorded their first series win away from home in more than 4 years. Resuming day 4 at the Darren Sammy Stadium in St. Lucia at 15 without loss and needing a further 309 runs for victory, the Windies were skittled out for 165 before tea. Keshav Maharaj, he took 5 for 36, including a hat-trick, while the player of the match was Kaigiso Rabada. He snapped up 3 for 44 to give the visitors a 2-0 series win. Kieran Pollard top scored with He top scored with 51 and Calameres added 34 in that losing effort. Roston Chase was unable to bat because of a quad injury. Here are the highlights.
Got him! That's what South Africa wanted. Has that come off the glove? They're appealing. Not out, says Joel Wilson. Are they going to review? Yes.
Nobody in that area. There'll be runs for the West Indies and for Kieran Powell. Nicely played again through the leg side, this time by Mayers.
Flipped away this time. More power on that shot. It will go all the way for 4.
Well, that's nicely played, actually. That's beautifully controlled. That's a really good shot. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Good shot. Really well played. Change of angle from Nokia, and that is a fine stroke. Everything was right about that. Slashing at that. Not worrying about it being in the air. That's very, very Calypso style, and it's raced away for a boundary. Running that one off the face. Good control, good solid shot, another boundary. Well, that's a top edge. Is it going to be safe? It's Elgar who's there, and Elgar's taken the catch.
And that's it for this edition of the Morning Report. We do apologize for the absence of weather. I'm Shane Seeley. Up next, Morning Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Good morning to you. Welcome to Tuesday, the 22nd of June, 2021. This is Morning Barbados. I am Pearson Bowen, welcoming all of you who are also watching us on our Facebook streams at CBC Barbados and Morning Barbados. And for those of you watching on our YouTube channel, Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, wonderful as always having you company. Today is Tuesday, and today on a typical Tuesday we'll also be connecting with our real estate agent and agent Sharita. Last week we looked at some of the things you need to consider when operating a senior citizen's home. Today we want to look at when you're operating a daycare center or a summer camp. Some of the things you need to pay attention to from a real estate perspective. We will also today be continuing our pandemic fitness with our guy, Mr. Califit 246 Thornwood. He'll join us to share a whole lot more about that. But let's get started with this question. What is TGAT? What is it? We're joined by the Calendars this morning, who are the producers of the upcoming series TGAT. They are Tashida and Kevin Calendar. Good morning, both of you. Welcome.
Good morning, Kirsten. Good morning, Barbados.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank both of you for waking up early. I know it's a bit of a struggle for one person in particular, him. But, you know, we are here.
Yes, I try to get her up early, but, you know, sometimes that doesn't always work out very well.
Listen, Father, forgive them both. Now, so TGAT. The question is, what is TGAT?
What is TGAT? TGAT is the acronym, and we always end up using acronyms for lots of our projects, but it is what TGAT stands for. And Tashida will explain that it's a culturally, I mean, she says it so eloquently that it's a culturally
Educational entertainment series. And in saying that, we just mean that we focus on music, our heritage, and be able to wrap that into one beautiful package and showcase it to Barbados and the wider world. So not just locally, but regionally and internationally as well.
And it's so important because sometimes we lose sight. We see individual performances, and then because it's so scattered, we don't get the whole picture. And so the gospel, according to TGAT, is going to be the series that I suppose that would allow us in a wholesome way to focus in on the different genres, the different musical expressions, so that we begin to see the scope of what we have to offer.
You captured it. You captured it quite nicely. So it's not. So while the name says the gospel according to, it is not. People that will hear it may think that it's a gospel show. It's a religious show. No, the gospel just refers holistically as the good news or the truth. You know, so we have the gospel according to soca, the gospel according to jazz, the gospel according to different genres. So as the genre changes, the venue changes, the vibe changes, everything changes, and we bring you a bit of history, we bring you a bit of culture, we bring you different artists and musicians, instrumentalists about Barbados, some who may be prominent, some who you may not. Who may be undiscovered, some who we may have forgotten, and just bring those and allow them a platform to shine again or to continue shining, you know, and as Tashida mentioned, not just on a Barbados platform, but on regional and maybe even international landscapes.
So the gospel is the good news, according to you, Tashida, and so we are discovering the good news of what exists. Can you tell me a little bit about what you have been able to discover while you are putting together the TGAT series?
Well, it's pretty interesting actually. So the first one is going to be the Gospel According to Orchestra, and we're going to filming that in a few weeks. And for that, we're going to have the Royal Barbados Police Force Band,
in all their splendor.
Yeah. And they're gonna accompany the mighty Gabby
You have
as
to
well.
call. You have to call the name
Sorry,
right. I like to call the full name.
Dr.
The Honorable.
Anthony, the mighty Gabby Carter, and he's going to be joined by two other artists, which would be Tati and Jamal Slow from J Slow. And one thing that is really important about this one is that we're going to be using the venue as Farley Hill. And as Kevin mentioned before, every time we do a different genre, the location changes, which means that the history behind that episode and that genre also changes. So what we've been able to do is to dig into the history of Farley Hill and pretty much bring Barbadians and people who appreciate heritage tourism into the culture of all that we have to offer, and let them know the different things about our history and Farley Hill as a venue and so on. There pretty much interesting things behind those mahogany trees that you would never even imagine.
Yeah, stuff that we learned even by a simple site visit. So there's a lot that has gone into it so far. And even Tashida is talking about the history and the culture of it, but even from the entertainment and the performance side, the musical side of it, we are just imagine taking some traditional songs that that you're accustomed to hearing and putting an orchestral spin on it.
Wow.
Just taking music that you may ordinarily just groove to, and having the police force band take that and strip it all the way down, and bring you some bassoons and some clarinets in there and some timpanis, just give you an entire orchestral, almost classical performance.
There is nothing to my ear like the sound of the violin or the flute. And to be able to fuse those instruments as well into these performances, I think is going to be fantastic. And Tashida, you're right. There's a lot that the trees can tell us. We would have done a series here on CBC that talked about the silent sentinels. So many people would have wrapped their life story around those trees. And to be able to live that out yet again in that iconic location of Farley Hill, itself being featured in films, is, to my mind, a very stately way to start. And you're starting with classical, you're bringing out the best of Barbados to start with. It's going to be resounding, I believe, it's a series. It doesn't end there, it just begins there. So in what other ways will it roll out?
So the
second one,
we can't let too much out of the bag as yet, but let's just say that we have earmarked the other 3 episodes, because we have a 4-part planned for your virtual environments. But we do have the other 3, which would be the Gospel According to Jazz, the Gospel According to Soca, and the Gospel According to 316, because we want to have a gospel one, but obviously it's kind of redundant to say the Gospel According to Gospel. So the 316 is a reference to John 3:16.
John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Yes.
And we've spoken to all of our artists, we've spoken to all of our musicians, all service providers. So all that we need right now, Pearson, is you.
Well,
we just need you.
The yous, all of these yous who are watching you this morning will definitely be a part of it for sure. But this is a tremendous undertaking. Talk to me a little bit about the vision, the dream, the passion behind pulling together the TGAT series.
Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
You can go ahead. I'm breathing heavily because it means so much to me individually. And even before we came on, I was saying to Kevin, I can't believe we're actually able to share this to Barbados.
Yes,
We've been talking about this for so many nights, working hard on it, talking to all of our partners, whether it would be just through endorsements, whether investors, and so on. So I'll let Kevin go because I feel a little too passionate about it.
So TGAT started actually on Christmas Eve 2020, yes. Christmas Eve, I just took a walk just down the street, and I sat on a wall, and I thought, I'd like to have an event where just a small intimate thing, no more than 200 persons, just to have different genres of music happening, and little canapes, cocktails. It's very small, very, very exclusive and intimate. And then a week later, we were thrown right into an entire lockdown,
Yes.
which kind of forced us to be like, okay, what's happening? Why is this happening? What do we do right now? And then in that time, Tashida and I had multiple conversations where we decided, you know what? Let's capitalize on the fact that we can't go out. Let's capitalize on the fact that we can't have people gathering, and just use the virtual environment to launch TGAT, to start it. And that's how this all came about. So we never stopped planning. You know, we never let money be used as a hindrance, or the lack thereof. We never let the lack of being able to go outside be used as a hindrance. We just always planned it as though it was going to happen, you know, whether next month, 2 months later. And right now, I mean, after speaking to a lot of our partners, everybody has jumped on. I mean, I have to say, especially good morning to Merville, who has been really there with us. Merville Lynch, he's been really there with us as far, like, he is as excited about it as we are, because I mean, just taking it from our heads, or from his head, and putting it into a camera and producing that, he is very ready to make it happen, you know. And then the police band, they have been amazing. They have been amazing. And I also want to mention here, Pearson, I heard you talk earlier about something about it being very stately, and I want to mention here that we also have a tribute based on the recent events. We have a tribute to the fallen officer. As well, that is also, pardon?
No, I mentioned his name. Go ahead. I'm with you.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a tribute to him, a special tribute to him in TGAT Orchestra, and I think that's going to be something very special and dear to them, as well as the family and extended family as well. So I mean, it's a lot that has gone into a lot of thought, a lot of planning that has gone into it, for sure. And the execution, I am most excited about. I'm kind of this person that if the event is happening 6 months from now, I want to plan it as though it's happening next week.
I got you. That makes sense.
Just so that any, Murphy likes to try invite himself in spaces where he's not wanted. So we just kind of try to rule out a lot of anything that can go wrong.
Yes, I got you. And the good thing in the tribute is that, you know, the fallen officer would have lived and died just a stone's throw away from this first event as well at Farley Hill.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about delivery, though, to Sheila. I want to hear from you now about, because it's, heaven forbid, our fingers all crossed, that everybody is allowed to come out, you know, and be a part of it in the physical space. Would it also be allowed on the virtual space for those who might not be able to access it, whether they're not Barbados or they just can't make it out?
So for this one, for sure, although we have some wiggle room now to attend events and so on, we're not going to do that for this one, just because of the dynamics around it. And you would see why when we actually release it.
Exactly. So that's actually a huge surprise. So
yeah. You would see why when it's actually released. So this one is just going to be strictly virtual, and I'm hoping that when we finish this and we go into the other three, we would then be able to do in person. But in terms of delivery, because it's virtual, it's going to be largely online. So what we are really working on right now is to build TV partnerships, hint, hint, to be able to distribute and to carry it across, further than our networks can handle, and as well as to build partnerships with different influencers, different organizations, whether it's just corporate Barbados generally, to actually be able to air it on their platforms or send a YouTube link, whether it's a WhatsApp blast or email blast, or promoting the trailer that we would distribute a trailer before we actually air it. So even if it's circulating the trailer, but I want every single person to consume this, because it's going to be so amazing.
The other thing that I've told Tashida, based on what she's saying right now, is that I would not encourage, while I do encourage you to watch it on whatever platform you can, when you can, like if you're watching it on your cell phone, put in a nice set of earplugs that you can get the entire surround fullness of it because of what it is.
Yeah,
You
it
can't
really
just
is.
you can't just listen to it on a cell phone speakers because you're not gonna get that fullness. You have to get this of it.
I got you. So the TGAT series launches soon. And for
Yes.
anyone who, anywhere in the world right now who's watching, who wants to know a little bit more about it, how can they access this information?
So they can follow us on Instagram, Facebook at Orange Mango Group or TGAT Series on Instagram. They could also visit our website, orangemangoinc.com, and we could send any information there. We're going to have an email list set up as well to do a blast to anybody that wants to stay in contact, whether it's through sponsorship or to just really follow the series. Just everything is on our website, really,
Yes.
and you can hop from there into any of our other social media channels.
And stay tuned to CBC. Stay tuned to CBC for more information on TGAT series as well.
Right. All right, so it's orangemangoinc.com. That's the website that you can go, and then you hop off into other areas and get to learn a whole lot more. It's upcoming, folks. We don't want to miss it. The gospel according to and ... thereafter. But TGAT series soon to come to a screen near you and soon to come to an experience for you as well. So I want to thank you, Calendars, Tashida and Kevin Calendar, husband and wife,
Thank you
Orange
very
Mango
much.
team, as we get ready for the
Orange Mango
TGAT
Group.
series. Have yourselves a great one.
Thank you.
All
Have
the
a great
best.
day.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Morning Barbados continues at 14 minutes after 7 after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
12 minutes now to go to the hour of 7 o'clock as we now get crickety. We get to talk about cricket now with the cricket commentator, soon to be new cricket talk show host, Pedro Agard. Good morning to you, Pedro.
Good morning, Pearson. You're sure people want to talk cricket?
We gotta talk cricket now, for real. How do you feel about yesterday's performance?
Well, to say disappointed is an understatement. To say surprise would be telling lies. So it's just another disappointing West Indies performance, to be honest.
So break it down for me. Why do you think it was disappointing?
Well, throughout the two-match series, it's obvious that West Indies batted poorly. As an analyst, I can sit here personally, I can give you a lot of reasons why I think that happened. But personally, for me, I saw a lot of fear in our batsmen. You know, that fear of competing, that constant repetition of the same mistakes. Every time there's a short ball, both our players, they're flinching, not sure how to play. We saw this in New Zealand on a couple of tours. And Pearson, you're a guy that went to a good school like me. And I always tell people, if you leave home every morning and turn left, and the dog bites you, at no time are you going to turn right. I mean, these guys make the same mistakes every single day and expect a different result.
So if you were the coach, you were part of that decision-making team, talk to me squarely. What would you say to these gentlemen in preparation for the upcoming T20 series?
Before or after I say goodbye. Because, I mean, a lot of them don't deserve to be around the cricket anymore, to be honest. The fortunate thing is that most of this side is going to be replaced for the T20 series, so it's going to be a brand new looking outfit. Guys with more gutsma, guys with more intent and more positivity. So this group will have to assess themselves and their performances, and it will take a lot for them to come back, because some of these guys, Shea Hope, especially Mears, and some of these guys will be around for the 50th series, but a lot of them won't be around for the T20 series. But personally, I don't think anyone's been around West Indies cricket, and we keep saying this, that it's gotten bad But I think no, it's gotten even worse. The batting has been totally disappointing.
So where would you put the responsibility for the resurrection of the team on? Where would you put it? Because where did we go wrong, or where would you put it?
Me personally, I'm pretty radical, so I'm going to put it on administration. I think that guys are getting into Test cricket too easy. You have guys not even averaging 40 in first class cricket, and we expect them to compete at Test cricket. You know, it's like guys going to university and doing secondary school English. We have guys trying to learn the hardest format, the hardest the hardest form of cricket, which is Test cricket. Guys are learning Test cricket at Test cricket, learning to be Test batsmen at Test batsmen. So I think for me, the administration has to look at their resources, make a decision about setting standards for players to get in the Test level, but that wouldn't happen anytime soon. So in the near future, I think the coaches have to be more assertive with the batsmen. Batsmen must be allowed to do whatever they've done in their little failed careers so far to get them to this level, because none of them careers are quite outstanding, to be honest. But whatever they've done, they have to be allowed to be natural with their intent and whatever they do. I see a lot of guys trying to do things differently from what I would have seen them do in local or regional tournaments. So a lot of guys are changing and transitioning their games in the middle of a test arena, and that can't happen. A lot of the coaches have to be blamed, because if I'm coaching a guy and I'm constantly putting programs in front of him to improve, and he's not improving, then the coaches have to make a big decision and say, look, you know what, go away and come back. But this doesn't happen, and in the end, the coach is going to get dropped, and the same disappointing players are going to be back. So we're in a loop here, Pearson, and in our lifetime, we think we got to hold some lashes.
But is there a large enough pool from which to choose? Because it's all well and good to say, you know what, I'm going to leave you out, I'm going to add you in, but where do you pull from? And is that pool enough quality to be pulled from?
Well, that's the thing. We don't have that quality player. So, I mean, again, I can only go back to my personal experience. When I was at Maple, there was a time we were dubbed Conway Schools West, which was a low point. And our former manager, rest his soul, Barry, would made a decision, look, we're getting beat anyhow. Let's get beat before we have. But bring along some players. And Barry turned to a lot of younger players, Shane Ramsey's and Ronaldo Parsons, these guys, and built a unit. For me now, what I would have done is say to all first-class players, look, I have a nucleus of 17, 18, 19 players I'm selecting from. If you guys want to replace these guys, do better than them. Then go in the first-class arena and do better. Replacing a guy that's averaging 32 in Test cricket with a guy that's averaging 31 in first-class cricket, you're not going to get any different results. What we are being tricked by in this Caribbean is that we see a guy come on the first-class season, score 100, and we say it looks good and he's ready. But after that 100, you look at his average for the series, he ends up averaging under 40, 32, 29. So it means that these guys aren't even capable to be consistent. So for me, I will have to stick with the bad ones we have right now and try to improve the core of what's left. And not just the first class players. I think we have to start to identify talent in the region at a younger age. Our guys are maturing later because they get into cricket too late. Tendulkar debut Test cricket at 16 years old. That will never happen again in the region, because we wait until a guy is exceptional to bring him around the cricket. And let me explain what I mean a little bit. You can identify a 13, 15, 16-year-old guy, and I'm targeting batsman right now. It doesn't mean he has to play first-class cricket or even under 9 cricket. But the idea is to bring him around that setup early enough that any bad habits you can get rid of early, and anything that needs to be improved on, whether it is mentally, physically, technically, you can work on it from a younger age. So when this guy breaks in the first class cricket, he's had a history, a couple of years of intense preparation. Happen. We have guys that play right now, primary schools cricket, under 15 cricket, and they've been around these competitions. 1 or 2 guys will stand out. Then these guys go to under 19, have a good season. And under 19 cricket, for all intents and purposes in the region, is not that competitive. But then these guys are thrown right into Test cricket. And we wonder why they don't do well, because they aren't prepared, neither technically, mentally, or physically, because Test cricket is very, very hard. So a lot of work needs to be done behind the scenes. With our juniors, I think some of the older guys are set in the ways. It's going to be hard to change them, but it will take a drastic approach, radical, which I can see our administration stay in our route. Someone will have to take the mantle and do something different.
We have a high performance center. One would have thought that was the conduit through which one enters the West Indies team. Do you see that as one of those areas that we can help to tap into to improve our overall performance going forward?
Yeah, for certain. I think the High Performance Center has its role to play, and a very important role. But again, it becomes the selection process which takes you to the High Performance Center. Again, you taking guys into a High Performance Center with a lot of bad technical errors, and you're not spending enough time with them. I think the High Performance Center has its role to play, but I don't think it's doing it. It's not for me turning out any quality players right now. So that whole setup needs to be looked at. Again, I keep saying to people, cricket is for young people. I think we need to target a younger demographic and work on a 2, 3, 4 year program. Listen, West Indies cricket is not going to turn. We've been going around the biggest corner in the world for the last 10 years. I mean, it must be the Savannah or something. We've been turning the corner every single month.
You're right.
You know, it's the biggest corner in the world. So we got to be realistic. You know, we have to stop looking at who we have and start preparing those guys down the fringe.
No, you're so right. Now, quickly, the upcoming T20 series, what do you think how do you think we can perform there based upon what you know?
Well, again, we're going off to Grenada, different surfaces. Again, completely different unit, but it will still come down to a South Africa bowling side against a West Indies batting side. A South African bowling side, which will still features the likes of Rabada and Gidi and Nortia. So these guys will be brimming with confidence. But you'll have to add to that the fact that we haven't seen the T20 team come as yet, but there are some very positive guys in that T20 side, which I think can make a difference. And the whole complex of the series can change in a matter of days. Those first two T20s coming up on Saturday and Sunday will give us a good look at where West Indies is really set up going towards that T20 World Cup. But I think the T20 series is going to be complete. I have to suck my thumb here because I came on this program before and said I thought we still had a chance in the Test series. That didn't even materialize closely. But the T20 series, I hate to think these guys disappoint me so badly, twice in a row. The T20 series, we should be more competitive.
I know you're also going to be starting a new radio show, In Swing. Can you give us a quick insight into what that is going to be about?
Yeah, but In Swing is a radio calling program which I'm looking to start along with Corporation CBC 94.7 FM on Monday between 7 and 8 p.m. And In Swing will be a show like no other. A lot of calling programs based guys call in and have a conversation. In Swing is going to focus on all things cricket related, grassroots cricket to international cricket. But we're not just going to bring cricket without analysis and stats. We're going to bring information. As I said, I've been in Ireland for over 15 years, so I have a pretty good idea about what is required technically. So we want to bring a more analytical view. Not only that, we want to help youngsters prepare for cricket. So on any In Swing program or any night, we'll have conversations about preparation of cricket as far as your diet, your commitment to the game, the time you got to put in. Because guys always think about a rest day, but while you're resting, the other guy that's competing with you in South Africa, he's not resting. So preparing guys for that next era, we're going to spend a lot of time in administration of cricket. But In Swing will be a show like no other. Trust me, Chris. You don't want to miss it. For sure, Chris, is going to be controversial because I'm not going to pull punches.
Yeah, I know that too well. All right, so In Swing starts on Monday coming, right on 94.7, The Best 24/7 at 7 p.m. Of course, you'll hear more as we lead up to that date as well. Pedro Agard is going to be the man in the chair. You'll be on the phones with him. It's going to be a call-in program, so get ready to engage. Pedro, we got to leave it there, but thank you again for your expertise and your insight in our analysis of what happened and as we project to what's coming as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all, person. Have a good day.
Likewise, Pedro Agard, a good CP guy. We're back after this with an update in the news.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Still to come on Morning Barbados today, we'll be connecting with our pediatrician as we want to look at how do we build our children's immune system. What can we do to prevent them from getting seriously ill as they grow as well? So we'll be looking at that. Also today with Agent Sharita, we'll be looking at the requirements for operating daycare centers and summer camps. She looks clearly at that subject to share with us from her expertise just what it is that we need to be mindful of. And Thornwood, Mr. Califit 246 will be joining us as we continue our look into pandemic fitness. That and a whole lot more straight ahead, but it's a minute and a half after the hour. Let's get an update now on news. Here's Shane Seeley.
Yes, here's your 7 a.m. headline news. And the newly announced protocols should be for all mass gatherings and not just for the entertainment industry. And that's the view of the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, reacting to the Prime Minister's announcement over the weekend about the 150 limit for events and mandatory testing for patrons who are not fully vaccinated. The BAMP President, Dr. Linda Williams, gave her take live on the Morning Report.
I agree with having a test, but within the parameters set, and then if we see that that can be done safely, then we can go forward from there. But if we don't get dry runs, then we're able to say, well, 500 works, and therefore the number is 500. If that is the reason for the test event, to increase the number by saying, well, this worked at this number. There's a reason for starting low and going slow, and all we are asking is that we look at it across the board. We look at mass gatherings across the board, because, like I said, not just for entertainment, for celebrations, for any place where people are gathered safely in places of worship, etc. It has to be that the same principles and protocols are followed by all.
Now, BAMP is satisfied with the requirements, which will help to increase the level of community testing for COVID-19 as more people get tested to go to events. Dr. Williams also agrees with the approach adopted by government in terms of the numbers allowed for these events.
Higher numbers going forward will depend on how safely we follow the protocols and how we protect ourselves against the spread of COVID during the event. So I think the decision to start low and revise upwards is a good decision, and that we have to take things very slowly, but that, if we say that we're going to allow mass gatherings, then we must do them in all spaces in a safe manner. So I think that is the gist of BAMP's position, that all mass gatherings, regardless of the cause, whether for entertainment or other purposes, must be done in a safe manner. And I think this is what we're trying to roll out right now.
In other COVID-related news, there were 2 positive cases for COVID-19, a male and a female, recorded from Sunday's tests. They were out of 352 tests conducted by the Best dos Santos Public Health Laboratory. The number of people in isolation is now 10, and a total of 4,045 COVID-19 cases have been confirmed here in Barbados since the pandemic began in March last year. 47 people have succumbed to the virus. As part of the national vaccination program, 92,071 first doses of the vaccine have been administered, and additionally 66,347 people are now fully vaccinated. Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley says Barbados will be taking its bid for concessional debt funding to the World Bank this week. This disclosure came during the Vice-Chancellor's Forum and Distinguished Arthur Lewis virtual event, a conversation on sustainable island futures hosted by the University of the West Indies. Here's what the Prime Minister had to say.
Our matter goes before the World Bank Board this week. It took a whole year. And I want to say something quick on this too, because there's a belief that you can do things normally in the middle of a war, when in truth and in fact, what matters in the middle of a war is time.
And the senior technical advisor to the government, Dr. Kevin Greenidge, has been saying that the recent hike in gas prices cannot be blamed on government because the add-on costs are attached even before oil reaches our local pumps. Speaking on Face It and Fix It yesterday, he said that the price at the pump has a 50% tax and another 33% in freight to get here. These costs cannot be changed as they rise with the price per barrel.
Because of the pandemic, government lost about 600 million in tax revenues last year alone from what it was expecting to get, and it has to make up that difference somehow. So we have to be mindful that when government thinks of the tax to give it ease, it has to make up somewhere, or services or some service it provide will suffer, or it has to take on debt. That's the only three sources, right? You either impact the services you get, and because of the pandemic, a tremendous amount of services like increasing welfare benefits, assistance to the hoteliers and those who were impacted, unemployment relief, many benefits. But you have to keep that in context. So the way the government is looking to deal with this is cap the VAT at a certain level, and to be able to then pass on that while managing it fiscally.
And that's it for your 7 a.m. headline news. I'm Shane Seeley. Back over to you, Pearson.
Thank you, Shane. Our time is now 7 minutes. After 7 o'clock, we'll take a break here. When we come back, it will be the Crumbs question of the day. Time for you to win. Stay with us.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It is 9 minutes after 7 o'clock. Are you ready to win? I'm ready to take your calls. You call me now for a chance to win on our Crumbs question of the day. You call 228-5562 or 228-5563 to correctly answer today's Crumbs question of the day. Correctly answer it and you win with Crumbs. Remember, Crumbs is absolutely delicious. You'll experience this right down to the very last crumb. There is a Crumbs bakery somewhere near to you as well. So the Crumbs question of the day, a chance for you to win. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Here comes today's Crumbs question of the day. That question is, what was Bridgetown originally named as? What was Bridgetown originally named as? Do you know? 228-5562 or 228-5563. What was Bridgetown originally named as? 228-5562 or 63. Get a chance to win with Crumbs Bakery. And when you go there, you'll get all the baked products you're looking for at very affordable prices. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Where are you watching us from?
Was it named Little Bristol?
No. But where are you watching us from?
I'm watching from St. Michael, Brazil.
Okay, Miss Grisettes, thank you, but you're wrong. Thank you so much for trying. It's not
Okay,
Little
all right.
Bristol. Thank you very much. 228-5562 or 228-5563. What was Bridgetown originally named as? You know this answer. I know you know. So 228-5562 or 228-5563. That's the question. The only question this morning that you need to work so hard at. What was Bridgetown originally named as? Good morning. Hello.
Morning,
Hi, good morning. Where are you watching us from?
Barbados. St. Michael.
Thank you. You saw my face, right? Listen. Right, so what's your answer?
Indian Bridge.
Don't ask me questions.
Indian Bridge.
You sure?
Yeah,
What makes you certain?
I know. Because I read it. I've
You read it
seen it
where?
on television. Yeah.
You've seen it on television and you've read it
Yeah.
where?
I said sometimes, but my brain's fairly good, you know.
For true?
Yes.
All right, so let me test your brain now.
Oh, my.
What is 49 plus 11?
60.
Ah, your brain good for true, girl. You're perking, as the old people say.
Yes.
So, what part of St. Michael are you watching from?
Treeside Road.
Oh, Tweedside Road, just down the hill from us here. All right, you're absolutely right when you said Indian Bridge, but do you know why?
I don't know. Indians were there. I don't know why, but I saw it.
All right, so that's your research for next time, okay?
Yeah, we'll do that.
You will do some research.
I'll go and search why.
And you let me know what you found out when you do your research into why Bridgetown was called Indian Bridge.
Very
There's a
well.
good story behind it, all right?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yes, madam. Stay on the phone. Don't put down. Someone will take some information from you. Congratulations to her.
Thank you.
She's won correctly. You're welcome. She's won today by answering correctly Indian Bridge. That's the original name for Bridgetown. It's now called Bridgetown, but it was called Indian Bridge before. And so she's won today with Crumbs Bakery. Tomorrow, it might be you. So look out for that opportunity when you join us again tomorrow. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we'll have our pediatrician on the line. Stay with us.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're 14 minutes after 7 o'clock. It is a Tuesday morning. It is the day that we spend time looking at our children's development with our good girl, our pediatrician, Dr. Julian Birchwood. Good morning to you, Dr. Birchwood.
Good morning, Pearson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I can't complain.
Oh, that's good.
I get to work with kids.
Exactly. I look forward to having these conversations with you. And I want today, if you don't mind, to look at protecting our children's immune system and how do we build it? Because as children are born, they're not necessarily born with the kind of robust immune system that we, who've been on this earth a little bit longer than they have. So how do we begin to develop an immune system that is strong enough with a child, a newborn baby? Let's start there, if you don't mind.
Yes, and this is a very common concern of parents. They're always worried about their youngster becoming ill. So when a baby is born, as you rightly said, their immune system is not fully operational. And so they actually achieve a lot of their early immunity through their mother. So when the baby's in the womb, actually even before they're born, mom is passing antibodies to them. Antibodies are factors in the blood that actually help the baby to fight infections. So the mom passes her own antibodies to the baby even in the womb. Some of them pass over. And then after the baby is born, that transfer continues with the process of breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is so much more than just giving the baby nutrition. It also transfers more of those active immune factors called antibodies to the baby. And really, for the first 6 months in particular, they do provide substantial protection. And it's been shown that the antibodies that babies receive from moms help to protect them from things like gastroenteritis. They protect them from certain types of ear infections and other infections. So particularly during the first 6 months, mom provides or helps to supplement baby's own immunity just in the simple process of breastfeeding.
So is the equation, whatever mommy has, baby gets? Is that a fair equation?
To a large extent, yes. So for example, if a mom is sick, the best advice we can give to the mom, let's say she has the cold, is to breastfeed that baby, because the antibodies that she's producing to protect herself will protect baby. And so very often in the beginning, we will tell parents, you know, if you have the cold and you breastfeed baby, you will find that baby will have either a very mild cold or no noticeable symptoms at all. And what they've shown more recently is that moms who have had the COVID vaccine, when they are breastfeeding, they pass the antibodies that they develop to the baby, and they think that will help to offer some protection to the baby from COVID.
Are there any instances where that does not happen, where because of her sickness or illness, she's not able to, or the baby is not able to receive those antibodies from mommy? Is there any situation where that does not happen?
Well, particularly if babies are born early. So if they're born early, that transfer of antibodies does not occur in the same robust fashion that it does when a baby is born at term. The baby is not able to breastfeed if the mom is separated for some reason, or if the mom herself has an immune problem where she cannot generate the kind of antibodies, or if the baby turns out to have an immune problem. And that's always very concerning and something that you will pick up because your baby may have recurrent illnesses of certain types which may be unusual. And that may be a sign of altered immunity.
I'm going to panic the first day the baby gets a cold. I'm going to get scared. So is that a fair reaction? And if that is the case, what do we do when the baby gets its first cold?
Ah, yes, the first cold. I know, you can hear the fear in the parent's voice, that first cold, that first fever. And I've been there myself. You know how it feels. You worry about the worst case scenario.
Yes.
Well, the truth is that babies, again, especially in the first 6 months of life, their immunity is supplemented by moms. And after that, their immune system really is much more vigorous. But I'll tell you, the first child may take a year to get a cold. The second child takes about a month because the first child infects the second. But generally speaking, colds and illnesses like that are usually mild in children. They have mild symptoms, and it is only very seldom that they actually genuinely have major problems. So most times, although it may feel scary, babies are able to get through those quite well. So I would say most parents have nothing to fear, and it is only in certain situations that you're going to be more concerned if the child's symptoms, for example, with a cold, if they have rapid breathing, or they're not feeding well, or they're having a very high fever. That can be a sign of something more serious happening rather than just a cough and a little bit of a runny nose.
Can we ever prevent a child, though, from being exposed to germs? I know as a child growing up, we played in the dirt. And we made that dirt tea. We drank it. We tasted, you know what I'm talking about. We did all of those things as children. Can we ever prevent a child from experiencing germs through those kinds of play?
You sound like you had a proper childhood.
I did.
Right? Drinking dirt tea is a rite of passage.
Of course.
But having too sterile an environment is not a good thing for a child. It's well known that the human body is composed of lots and lots of bacteria, which are actually there, most of them, to help us. And so exposure to germs is beneficial to our own immune system, both to stimulate an immune response and train our bodies, but also we have bacteria that live alongside us and help to confer additional immunity. So I think that, nowadays parents are very worried about their children playing in the dirt and getting germs and so on. But getting illnesses during childhood ensures that our immune system develops in the right way. In some scientific circles, it is felt that if you have too sterile an environment, that you're more likely to develop allergies rather than immunities to infection, because our immune system is then trained in the wrong way. So having little colds and so on builds our immunity over time, but also in the right way.
Mm-hmm. And the other environment, though, that a lot of parents are concerned about is daycare. When the child has to go off now to mix and mingle with other people's sick children or in a sick building, and that child then comes home and you have to face the doctor with the sick child. So what advice would you give to a parent about helping, understanding that process and trying to build a child's immune system?
Yes, it always seems that the child with the runny nose is the one who greets everyone else at the door when it comes to preschool. Now that's not so much the case because things have tightened up a lot with COVID. However, again, preschool is a rite of passage. At some point, our children are going to be exposed to infections. We all live on planet Earth and infections are part of it. So whether that happens in preschool or primary school, you may delay the process, but you can't avoid the process. And again, mixing and mingling when children get illnesses from other children, each time that child has an illness, they develop specific antibodies to that virus. And that way, they have a memory, like a storehouse of antibodies. So when they are exposed again to that same virus, their body immediately recognizes it and they develop a quick immune response and they don't become ill the second time, or they become much less ill. And so this is why going to preschool and getting infections really saves you, because as time goes by and you are inevitably exposed to other viruses, they don't become ill as much. So they seem to be sick all the time when they first go to preschool, which is really frustrating for parents. But after a certain amount of time, they stop being ill so much. And that's because their immune system has been gradually built up. So it's actually a helpful process, though it's not a pleasant one.
The child with asthma, and no parent likes to hear their child struggle to breathe.
Yes.
What condition predisposes a child to asthma?
Well, there are certain conditions that go together, and we call these the atopic conditions. And conditions such as eczema, having a tendency to have nasal allergies, and asthma are often inherited together within the same family. So you will find that if you have an asthmatic child, you may have had a parent who had eczema as a child, and the other parent may have allergies. They don't necessarily have to have asthma, but they almost herald the development of asthma in children. So having those conditions within the family, those atopic conditions as we refer to them, definitely will place a child at higher risk for developing asthma. So they go together. And when we see a child who's very young who has eczema, as a pediatrician, I will look out and say, I wonder if this child might develop asthma or signs of asthma later on in childhood.
No, that's news to me, I'm telling you. Honestly, that is news to me. I thought it was something else that would have predisposed a child to asthma, but here it is. If the parent would have had eczema, the likelihood is, because of the association, the child would probably develop asthma, and that's, I think for a lot of parents, that's an eye-opener this morning, you know. Yes. It's like, whoa, now I get a clearer understanding. But it calls on, obviously then, for the parent and the caregiver to do a lot more research and to be a little bit more open in their family medical history as well, because that's the only way you, the pediatrician, you're able to better diagnose exactly what's going on.
Yes. Right, so one of the things that we do when we first meet a family is that we're going to ask questions about other family members. And sometimes people don't understand why. And this is so that we can build a more full picture of the different risks that a child may have inherited. So if we know that on one side, everybody in the family has eczema, on the other side, there are relatives with asthma and with nasal allergies, recurrent sinus problems, for example, then we'll know in the early to look out. So if that child has developed a certain type of cough, they may be wheezing, you say to yourself, this might be the first manifestation of asthma. So it is something that you have to look out for in an at-risk family.
There's some skin conditions that also present with young children. You know, you see their skin break out for whatever reason, whether it's from the bug bite or something else. What are some of those something else's that would cause a child's skin to break out so shockingly for a parent?
Yes. I always say that, whoever said as smooth as a baby's skin didn't have one. Right? Because children are very prone to having rashes. So one of the rashes that we just talked about that's quite common and also distressing is eczema. And for parents, and they will notice that their child may have a rash on their cheeks or around their neck or sometimes in the folds of the arms or legs that can be very itchy and may be so itchy as to disturb the child's sleep and cause them to be very irritable. So eczema is another one of those atopic or allergic conditions. And so again, a parent may have had asthma or nasal allergies, and they may have a child with eczema. And if you have a child who develops eczema, yes, and if you have a child who is diagnosed with eczema at a very young age, it may also indicate that a child may have underlying food allergy. If I see a 2 or a 3-month-old with major eczema, then I'm going to definitely be concerned about the possibility of food allergies. If a child develops eczema at a later age, there isn't such a close association, but a young child who has eczema, you need to think about food allergies and explore things much more carefully. They may have a milk allergy or an egg allergy, which is triggering this terrible rash. So it's something for parents to think about in a young child who has eczema, for example.
The heat rash. We assume, okay, the child is too hot, so therefore the bumps occur, those kinds of things happen. So what causes a heat rash in a child?
Well, heat rash is a sort of a catch-all phrase for a rash that is more noticeable when it's hot. But for example, eczema is triggered by heat. So if it's very hot and a parent comes in and says, there's this rash that only seems to be there when it's really hot, but it goes away or it gets a lot better in the cool of the day, again, you might be dealing with a form of eczema because it's often quite temperature sensitive. So, this catch-all phrase of heat rash really might be eczema. In very young babies, newborn babies, if they're very hot, they can get a rash that's called prickly heat, which is different from eczema, but this is in very young newborn babies.
We often think that a topical application is the cure-all for conditions such as that, but as you just said, it could very well be another form of allergy that's triggering this. So naturally, it is important to have that discussion with our pediatricians so that we get to the root of the cause so that we can find the best solution going forward. But would you recommend, though, as a start, those topical applications, or should we be a lot more mindful of which topical application we apply to a particular age child?
Yes. So if you, for example, think that you have a child who has eczema or tendency to have sensitive skin, then any and every moisturizer will not do. The child may not react well to the fragrances and things that are added to those ones, that we like to apply to babies because they smell so nice.
Yes.
So we need to switch to things that are more suitable for sensitive skin and that build up the layer of the skin that is more deficient in children who have eczema. So children who have eczema, their skin is sort of more porous. And so you want to focus on products that help to build that layer. And that has been shown to help improve the overall condition of skin in children who have eczema. And they are less likely to have flare-ups if their skin is adequately moisturized with the right products. And that also applies to what they're being bathed with. So again, those nice scented soaps, we love our babies to smell so nice, are usually really inappropriate when you have a baby or a child with sensitive skin.
Can we overbathe the baby? Can we bathe the baby way too much and it destroys the skin?
That's a great question. In the Caribbean, we believe not. But the truth is that if you have eczema, if you have overly frequent baths, that can dry the skin out and make things worse. So for some children, it's actually beneficial to cut back the number of times that baby is bathed to help preserve the moisture in that skin barrier that the little one with eczema is lacking.
So that we avoid any kind of food allergy, can you give us a sense of the food groups that we should be giving our children so that we can diminish the possibility of there being some food allergy as a consequence? What would you recommend?
Well, it used to be believed that avoiding certain foods would prevent food allergy. But a couple of years ago, they did some major research and realized that the opposite is true. So, for example, in
Wow.
countries where in countries where they introduced these so-called highly allergenic foods like nuts and fish, when those are introduced early, they found that in those countries that have a cultural tendency to introduce those foods, there were far fewer cases of food allergies. And so the pendulum swung completely the opposite way, so that if you know that there's a risk of food allergy, there are people in your family that have food allergies, then the recommendation is now for early introduction of those foods that would have been considered dangerous, such as nuts, fish, wheat, eggs, milk. That earlier introduction may actually prevent or delay the onset of food allergies, in addition to breastfeeding, which is also a major way to prevent the onset of food allergies.
I so hate it when we have to come to the end, but that tells me we have to continue as well. So Dr. Birchwood, as usual, thank you so much again for joining you with us this morning. But it tells that there's so many little things that as parents and caregivers we need to pay such close attention to. But it also means we have to have a closer relationship with our pediatrician so that we are better able to understand how we are able to help our children grow healthily. So thank you as always today, and we look forward to having you again next week, should God spare life, as we continue this journey together. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Have a great day.
Likewise. Our favorite pediatrician, Dr. Gillian Birchwood, joining us this morning. We're going to take a break here right now, and we're back with even more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
24 minutes now to go to the Ayurveda Club. Before we get to our next guest, I want to give you a little bit of information about this Soca Showdown, because this Saturday night, preliminary number 1 in the Soca Star contest is on. We've randomly selected 12 of you from the 24 who've qualified thus far. And I mean, there are some big names for this Saturday night at 9 o'clock here on TV8 and also on radio, 98.1 The One and 94.7 FM. So those 12 will be not physically competing, but their music will be showcased to you. And then the voting begins. You'll only be voting with your Flow mobile device. So we'll share with you that text code, and you will text in particularly your one that will go through to the 6 that make it into the final. So 12 of them, the music will be played on Saturday night at 9. You text to determine the 6 that go forward. And of course, on Saturday night as well, there's the Coca-Cola after party, where you get a chance to also enjoy yourself immensely right after. But so more details as the week goes on. But let's head over now to Agent Sharita reporting for duty this morning. Agent Sharita, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. You look so pretty this morning. Well done.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you.
You're very welcome. She's landed back after the turbulence, but it's good to have you back again. Last week we were looking at some of the things we need to consider if we're going to be engaging with the senior citizens home. And this week you want to look at if we want to take up the business in day care centers and perhaps summer camps. So where do we begin in considering which properties that we'd want to use for these endeavors?
All right. So one of the things I tend to incur is that people look at a property for let's say, the purpose of a daycare center, and they get all excited until they realize they have to fulfill a number of requirements, for the Ministry of Health, for the Ministry of the Environment, by town planning standards, etc. So it's probably best to come armed with a list of those regulations and requirements before you pick the house. It is necessary, the house or building, I should say. In the instance of those properties which are designated as residences, you have to, first of all, see if the neighborhood even allows you to have a daycare center. I have had an instance where, because there was a daycare center in the neighborhood already, when the neighbors felt another one was coming, they were like, no way, Jose. They rose up in arms, had a petition. So you first of all have to establish if what you have in mind can even fit in that neighborhood. Once you've done so, if it's a residence previously, you then have to submit the plan. So you have to get floor plans of that residence now drafted as if it were a daycare center, and then submit it to town planning to see if they would approve it. So a lot goes into play with daycares. You don't just show up and say, this looks as if it has enough space for kids and a yard, so let's go.
Because there are a lot of safety issues that one would have to take into consideration as well. They're children. And so safety in terms of preventing them from having an accident, but mobility as well, because not the little feet can't climb the huge steps as us adults would. So a number of factors would have to be taken into consideration along with the location. You're quite right. The children in a daycare center can create a cacophony of noise. And there are some neighbors who may not necessarily want that.
Yes. And what you said there in terms of safety and security, the fire service has to come out and check. They actually do measurements and look and so forth to make sure, is there enough room here? If a fire were to break out, are there enough exits? You'd be surprised to know all the details that go into play. For example, even with the kitchen, there must be a door locking off the kitchen from the rest of the space so that a child can't accidentally crawl in there. You also keep in mind things like bathroom facilities. There have to be separate bathroom facilities for staff and for the kids, and if you have bathrooms for the kids, might it be necessary to get a smaller toilet? Yes. So we all know about adult toilets, but yes, they're child-friendly toilets too, or at least methods to accommodate what is in existence for the little ones. you have to think of all those things, and safety goes a step further, even when it comes to taking the linen out, dirty linen.
Yes.
It can't go through the living spaces where children are. Is there a back door? Is there a chute that takes it from, wherever you pull the linen from into another laundry room? So it's a lot of detail, Kirsten.
Indeed. Ventilation is also going to be critical. These are children we're talking about here, if it's a daycare center you're going after, and so the adequate ventilation is going to be critical. Children tend to herd together, and so you want to make sure that they're able to do so safely with sufficient air to breathe, because a congested room and a hot environment, not good for children.
Yes, I had the privilege of being able to accompany someone from the Ministry of Health recently as she walked around a daycare center to see if it was up to par. And I felt as if she took me to school. The ceilings had to be a certain height. I think it was 8 feet or higher. In each room, there had to be X amount of windows.
Yes.
And the list went on and on. Even in terms of those rooms that have babies where you have the cribs, for example, I think the layout is supposed to be that each crib must be 30 inches from the other and 18 inches apart from walls and fixtures. So this could obviously impact too on the amount of revenue you earn.
Yes.
So you might go to a property thinking, oh, this is cute. But by the time you look at the rooms and break down how many children you can get into each space, you might not be making as much money as you think. And even with toddlers, for example, I think they're allocated like 22 square feet per toddler to make sure you don't have a sardine effect in these centers.
Safety, the external safety now, let's look at that too. I think that has to be considered as well, because they're children. Children, little feet, they wander, they run, and they see a moving vehicle, they want to run after it. And so your external security systems would have to be also taken into account, wouldn't it?
Yes, so let's state the obvious. You'll find that most daycare centers are fully enclosed, and not just fully enclosed in terms of the yard space, but then you have to make sure that children cannot get out of the property easily. Just on Saturday, this is no joke, I was showing a house for the purpose of a sale. And as I was standing on the outside while the client looked around, I saw a child in Pampers, nothing else, running across the road to the house. And I looked around frantically like, where is the mother? When I called the resident from the house, he came out in panic saying, the two siblings are watching her.
Yes.
And she ran across a road that had buses and all sorts of things normally on that road. Luckily, it was empty. She was blissfully unaware. So you have to make sure they cannot even sneak out of the house. You think you have your eyes on them, but it doesn't take much for them to move.
So very true. Would the same considerations be taken into account when it comes to summer camps? Because it's going to be that time when people are wanting to host children. So is it any different in making the decision as to where to host a summer camp?
Now, the reality about summer camps, you get a lot of permutations and combinations. Some people just pop up today and decide, I'm having summer camp tomorrow. But still, you need to keep the prerequisites of what daycares offer in mind, because it comes into play, obviously, you're still dealing with children. Things that are very important come down more so to the food handling aspect. You refer to the basic regulations of the restaurant, the Restaurant Act or whatever it's called, but they would guide you in terms of food handling and what is required to safely make that happen. More importantly now than ever is the space component. So you have to look at the space you have, and in light of COVID and all the various protocols, you can't go hardcore in terms of packing your location. So that is something to be mindful of. And yes, the similar rules to obviously the daycare setup is a lot more stringent, but in terms of summer camps, you have to keep that in mind as well. Just to round out, for daycares, you have to ensure that obviously the staff have medical certificates, food certificates. You have to get the fire department involved, Ministry of Health involved, and town planning involved. So check with all of those agencies first before you go out looking for the property.
That's right. They'll guide you well. And the real estate agent will also guide you very well. Agent Sharita is just a phone call away, 233-8888. See how well I know the number, folks? Easy to remember. 233-8888. Agent Sharita or Real Estate Barbados 246. On social media, you'll find her. And when you find her, you'll get some sage advice. So, Sharita, thank you so much again for joining us this morning as we continue our journey with you through to our real estate experience. And we want to wish you only the very best today and always. Thank you for joining.
Absolute pleasure, Pearson.
Thank you. Agent Sharita over and out. She'll be back next week, God's Spare Life, as we continue to delve into some of the different nuances of real estate in Barbados. A break, and when we come back, a different kind of agent. He's almost a terror agent. Caliphate 246 will join me right here on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Testing, testing. Y'all can hear me clear? Yeah. Sammy met sport on my AirPods that got me feel bad. Testing. Peter, pack a pick of peppers. Oh, most definitely. Once the studio ready, Matt Pearson do 6,000 burpees.
Morning.